My body was shutting down. Being under the sun, running and doing it for 5.5, 6 hours, my body was experiencing something it never experienced before.
$2K swim, $90K bike, and then finish it off with an easy $21K run.
I did the Ironman race for a time, yeah.
Why? Why did you decide to do that?
The question is, why not? And when I crossed that finish line, I felt something I've never felt ever in my life.
In this episode, Aziz explains to us why he decided to do the Ironman. This is the high performance mindset, and today's guest is Aziz at Salam. Enjoy the show. Aziz, why did you decide to do the Ironman? Let me explain to the people what is Ironman 70.3. Basically, It's 2K swim, open water, basically in the sea, and then 90K bike, and then finish it off with an easy 21K run. Why? Why did you decide to do that?
The question is, why not? That's the exact question I asked myself when I first stumbled upon a video on YouTube. I never knew what Ironman was, and I never knew what triathlon was and all that. I was never fond of running or doing anything for long distances. So when I first saw a video of people competing in Ironman, that was the first question that came to my mind. Is why not? Why can't I do this? And what if I can do this? And that sparked my curiosity. Then following that same day, I watched a documentary called The Iron Mind. It features two people. One has a talk show, and the other one was a recovering drug addict. He had a very bad drug addiction, and he wasn't able to treat it with rehab, his life was very bad, what he was going through in his life. And then somebody introduced him to triathlon, the sport, the actual sport. And that was the only thing that treated him and turned him into a very productive citizen in his community, and he became a very influential person and started guiding and mentoring people. Now, listening and hearing and watching that guy's story really inspired me to see what I can do when I cross that line. And that's how it all started.
Okay, but you did it 4 times, am I correct?
I did the Ironman race for a time, yeah. 4 times.
Why would you put yourself through that again? Was it for the same reason? Or each time it was for a different reason?
Initially, when I first started, I realized there are certain, so everything, the way I see things and the way I see things in life is that everything has a formula, okay? And there's a set of rules that you have to follow in whatever you do in life. So when I first saw this, I realized, okay, fine, you need to do something differently in order for you to be able to do something like this. And as I was exploring and learning more about the actual sport, and then learning more about the professionals who are doing it, and then I slowly started getting introduced to other people doing other amazing things, which involves not only physical endurance, but also mental endurance. So when I decided to take upon this challenge, it took me quite a long time, because I initially didn't have a coach or anybody to mentor me, except for a few friends, and most of it was off the internet. But I realized I'm not doing it the right way. So it took a bit of longer time than others. And when I got to a point where I sort of understood that there's a process and there's a system that you have to believe in, and it takes a certain amount of time to do it. But you have to be very patient, you have to be consistent. And when I got to that level where I'm able to compete, that's when I decided, okay, now I want to try. I think I can try doing the Ironman, which happens twice a year in Oman, once in Muscat, and I think the following year after I did it was in Salam. So in Oman today we do this race twice a year. Bearing in mind that this race is all over the world, over 150 countries I think, and it happens throughout the whole year. So my first time doing the Ironman, I did a lot of mistakes, but because I know that I'm a stubborn person to a certain extent, I refuse to fail. I've done everything as much as I can, but I know I did a lot of mistakes. And when I crossed that finish line, I felt something I've never felt ever in my life. Never. other than, yeah, the closest thing that I could say probably, or a bit more close to it, was maybe when the highlights of my life, like when getting married, getting my first daughter, and then my second and third, and so on and so forth. But this one was quite different. It wasn't like that. That sense of achievement and the amount of dopamine and adrenaline that I had, it was almost like an overdose. And that was addictive. That was very, very addictive for me. I've never tried anything like that before. And finishing and crossing that line was probably the best feeling I've ever had in a very, very long time. And despite going through a painful recovery, 2-3 days after that first Ironman, by the 4th day, I already started planning on my next Ironman, because that feeling that I had already faded off. Of course, mentally you're proud and you talk about it and you promote it and all that. But what was interesting is that the people around me, family, friends, and all that, I started realizing and noticing that it inspired them and it motivated them to do something they've never done before. It doesn't necessarily have to be doing an Ironman. It wasn't about the Ironman. It wasn't really about the race. It was just about being able to do something you're not able to do or you've never thought you could do before. And that even got me more motivated to start planning for the next one and start looking for these local races and taking part in it. And with whatever mistakes I've went through and learned and got better and all that, I share that knowledge. And the community, alhamdulillah, here in Oman and everywhere else in the world, is very supportive. If you carry a backpack and you're traveling in the airport, and I've got this so many times, and there is an Ironman logo, and anybody in the world who's done Ironman, all that, it's just natural. They'll just come and start talking, and you're like friends already. So the community is it's a very welcoming and very supportive community. So that also helped a lot with wanting to do it the second time, the third time, the fourth time. It may sound, so the whole event could take anywhere between 4.5 hours all the way to 8.5 hours, which is a cutoff time. But the amount of work that you need to put in to be able to just complete the race, the Ironman race. And of course, every circuit or every country has its own different level of difficulty. And that would vary based on the timing you finish, right? So the amount of discipline and commitment that you have to have in order for you to be able to be fit enough to finish that race is a lot. There's a lot of dedication and focus and commitment and consistency. But it's all for the sake of finishing that final line that we talked about a bit earlier.
Now we spoke about, it sounds very nice, but people don't know about how painful the preparation is.
Yeah.
And how many demons you have to, face on almost on a daily basis. So what were the setbacks that you went through?
So maybe also before setbacks is, first there are sacrifices that you have to make.
Like?
And before even taking those or getting those sacrifices or sacrificing these things in your life, you have to have a good support system. And the best support system is your family, right? So I had a talk with my family, my wife and my kids and even my parents.
This is before the first time?
Before first time, yes. And I said, listen, I want to embark on this journey and all that, but I know there'll be certain times and it's not going to be easy. I don't know how to do it, but I'll learn how to do it and so on and so forth. So that was the first thing I did.
Why did you feel you needed to
Because, preparing or training for an Ironman, specifically this Ironman race, is that it requires a lot of time. Okay, and a lot of time, especially when you're married and you have kids, a lot of the time also belongs to them. So you try to balance between your own life and your being a father and being a husband and work and study and so on. All these things come into play. So time becomes very, very valuable, because if you're preparing for an Ironman race and let's say you're at an amateur level, you need to spend at least between 12 to 16 hours a week of training. Now, I know that sounds not that much, but when you have to be
I think for a lot of people it sounds insane.
No, a week, in a day you have 24 hours, right? So, some people might not think it's a lot, but it's a lot.
Because, an average person who works out would work out, I think,
5
maybe
to 7 hours.
four times, yeah, a week.
Yeah.
So 4 hours, if they're okay, 5 hours, 5 times a week they work out and they do full 1.5 hour or 1 hour,
Yeah.
so.
It's a lot. I know it's a lot, but eventually if you get to see what the pros do, then you'd realize then, okay, then it's not. But anyway, yeah, we're not professionals.
Yeah.
But you need to see, so pre-race preparations, you need to spend anywhere between 10, maybe 12 to 15 hours a week. And that's precious time that belongs to your family, friends. You have to sacrifice with your kids and so on and so forth. So eventually what I ended up doing, obviously, so that's number one, is having your support system, your family, and maybe your spouse. My wife is probably one of the most strongest support systems that I have in everything that I do. So with her blessing and the support that she gives and taking care of kids and all that, it came into play. Another thing is that sacrificing on your social life. And so, for example, my daily routine, I start my day at 4 o'clock.
At 4?
4 o'clock in the morning. And I get into the office by 7:15, 7:30. Maximum at 8. That's when we start. My work is at 8, so I'm always there early. But in the first 3.5 hours of the day, I've slotted my time in order for me to be able to cover as much as I can, which involves...
Okay, there's a lot to unfold here. How did you land at this 4 o'clock? Was it, okay, I'm going to start preparing for Ironman, I need to be up at 4? Was it that straight?
No.
Was it...
No, it was a process. It was a process. But also it's because of the other things that I do as well. That includes work, side businesses that I have, studying a little bit, trying to study every day at least, 20 minutes, half an hour, formally or informally, just that me time, right? So doing it in the evening is not possible, especially considering the distance that I have to travel, the time that I have to leave the office, spending time with the family, the kids at least an hour before they go to bed, or have dinner together with them.
You had tried previously to do it in the evening?
Yeah, so I've tried to, yeah. And this was also one of the things that made me appreciate time more, but also taught me a lot what you can do when you just plan yourself properly. You plan your day, you plan your week ahead time and all that. So it came into play. So I realized if you want to do anything in the evening, then it means you're completely taking away your family time. Because for me, I have to at least see my kids at least once every day. Even if it's for half an hour, 1 hour, spend time with them. Even if it's just sitting in the sofa and watching TV or doing something there around me, that's fine. So, but if I do anything in the evening after work, then I don't get to see them because they sleep early and they go to school early in the morning and all that. So it could happen that a few days you don't see your kids, and that's not fair. So I decided, okay, fine, I'll sacrifice sleep. I'll sacrifice my evening. Actually, to be honest, it is a sacrifice, but it's also not a sacrifice for me because I was never a night owl in any way. I'm not a night person. So 9 o'clock, I'll already be in bed.
This is even before Ironman?
Yeah. I mean, before Ironman, 10, 11, but I was never the person who would find me hanging around at 12 or 1 every day or looking for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, like most people would sleep, I would say, around 10, 11 because they have work the next day.
Yeah.
And, they'll probably watch Netflix or something, whatever, something on TV till 11 till they fall asleep.
Yeah.
But if you want to be up at 4 and have energy to go and do your God knows how many hours per week, I don't think that's the most efficient way to go about it, right?
True. So again, it also comes down to a lot of things, but I've always been okay with sleeping early and waking up early. The only thing was the difficulty that I had was staying motivated. Because if you have to do this every day, then you need to find...
Where's the challenge?
When you need to see...
Is it waking up at 4?
No, it's not waking up. It's doing certain things repeatedly for 3-4 months in a row.
You mean like the routine?
The routine, all right? Sometimes you're geared up and motivated to do it, but a lot of the times you're not. And this sport is a very lonely sport. And it's very... I remember the first year and a half, I was always just alone. because you don't really train with anybody. If you go cycling for 2 hours, very rarely you'd find somebody with you there at that time during the week. If you're going to be running for an hour and a half, same thing. If you're going to be swimming in the ocean, and a lot of people don't like swimming in the ocean, but whether you're swimming in the ocean or the pool, it's also you're doing it alone. It's not like you're going to the gym and meeting your buddy and doing a workout
It's
together,
hard
right?
to always get the.
Yeah.
Even if sometimes you can work out with a group, but it won't happen every time.
Yes, so it's rarely it happens. So it becomes it's a lonely sport. You learn how to be okay with yourself. But I realize also that's an opportunity for me to grow. And I tell you what I did that really kept me motivating is I started listening. Well, I've been trying to, as much as I can, to read as much books as I can during the last 4 or 5 years, ever since I started this. And then I moved to audiobooks. So I realized that few hours that I spend alone doing a workout, because you can be on a stationary bike or even on the road or running for an hour and a half, and it gets boring listening to music every time. So I started listening to audiobooks and so on and so forth. So that helped with, listen, I have to go today and do the bike, swim, or whatever it is that I'm going to be doing for an hour or 2 hours, and because I need to finish this book in a week or 10 days or whatever. So that helped. And at one point of time, I had a rhythm where I finished at least 2 books a month, because an average audiobook would take about 9 hours to 10, maybe 12, if it's a big book. So in a week or 2 weeks, you could be done with the book.
What if the narrator is not yeah, exactly, that's what I'm asking. Because if it's not your cup of tea,
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Some of them just put you to sleep.
Yeah, true.
So what do you do when?
No, but then
when
you just
want
push
the book,
through it. You push through it. You push through it. I mean, but I pick books. I try to pick books that keep me engaged. I know that I'm going to be learning something and grow out of it. And yes, you might have very engaging narrators like Trevor Noah's book. I listened to it. Will Smith's book. He was narrating it. Listened to it. 50 Cent's book, Hustle Harder. He's narrating it, so it's exciting and it keeps you going and all that. But yeah, others would be boring. But I was able to incorporate that as well in that time that I spent, right, with myself. And then I go to the office. Once I'm done with all that, I'm in the office, put my work in there, and then only thing I look forward to right there after finishing my work is heading back home and seeing the family or spending time with the family. And certain times or certain days, probably I'm able also to make dinner for all of us and all that, which also I like to do. I enjoy doing a lot. So it's just about managing time, which is key here right now. And if you're not really doing a good job in managing your time, then it doesn't mean you can't do these activities or these races or take part in Ironman. You can, but it'll just make it harder for you.
Now, a person might want to start waking up at 5 or 4, but then they're gonna wake up and not feel like continuing to sleep.
Okay.
Does that happen to you?
Meaning because you mean waking up early in the morning and
Let's say you want to wake up at 4.
Okay.
And you're feeling tired. What are your thoughts?
Just wake up and get out of bed.
What if you say, but I didn't sleep well last night?
It's okay. When the night comes, I'll sleep again. Because to me, sleep is not about the number of hours I sleep. It's the quality of sleep. Sometimes you can sleep for 5 hours or 6 hours, but the quality of sleep is excellent. And then other days you sleep at 9, 10 hours. And so I had this device I used to wear. It's called Whoop. It measures your recovery from your sleep, and it assesses your activity and then your recovery, but mainly your sleep. And I realized that the quality of sleep is not in the hours that you sleep in. It's how you recover. You can be sleeping 5 hours, but the quality of your sleep is great.
How can you improve your sleep?
So if you're an athlete or doing any type of endurance sports, your body will always be fatigued. Your muscle will be sore and so on and so forth. Now, you could be sleeping for 8 to 10 hours in bed, but then you wake up in the morning and you're completely tired. You can't do it. It's because your body didn't recover well. So then there are so many things. So there are recovery protocols that you have to adopt, just like how you build strength and you build endurance and you train and all that. There's also protocols for you to apply for recovery. So things like consuming magnesium. That's very, very important. Magnesium is probably one of the most important minerals that you can consume, especially when you're an athlete, all right? Second thing is recovering, like ice baths or massages, or even staying in the sauna 2-3 times a week, just to help your muscles relax and all that, and break down the lactic acid, because lactic acidity stays for long. especially when you're constantly training and training and training. So once you learn how to, and there are certain things like, for example, staying away from your phone or any devices or screens like 1 hour before you go to bed. Certain things you try and adopt, certain things work. And all for the sake of improving your quality of sleep, not the quantity. So once you figure that out and you get into a rhythm, I think anybody could be okay.
So let's say it's 4 a.m. and your mind is telling you you did not have good quality of sleep. What do you say to yourself?
Just get up. Go back to your routine. Trust the
know.
system. That's just one bad day. It happens. It happens. Even when you're following all the protocols, everything is right. It happens sometimes. You don't sleep well sometimes. So this is where the motivation aspect comes into play. You know? And if you believe in the system, you believe in the process, just do it. Probably even when you go for your workout, you won't perform your best because not every time you go for training, you perform at your best, right? You feel terrible, you're tired, you're sore. Instead of running 12 kilometers, you'd end up running maybe 5 or 6. It's okay. Just get it out of the way.
There's so many things I want to get into.
Yep.
Thanks to you, of course, I started preparing for Ironman, inshallah, February.
Inshallah.
Initially, I just thought I came to you, I told you I want to do endurance training. And because I knew from my experience from cycling that it's a lot to do with mental. And I knew that if I want to maximize my potential, then my mindset has to be also up there. And I felt like endurance training will help me get there. Now, one of the things I've learned is adaptability. Now, in your case, how important is adaptability, did you feel, from your Ironman training?
It's probably the most important thing. You have to be able to adapt to changes because you're shocking a system that's used to doing something, right? And they say, I think there's a saying says, for you to pick up a habit, you need to do it for 21 days or something like that. But the reality of the fact is not everything. Not everything.
More than 21 days.
Yeah, not everything is 21 days. So you need to be able to adapt. But again, it comes down to if you're focused and you know that you have a goal that you want to achieve. Like I said, everything has a formula. Everything that you want to do in life or achieve in life has a formula. And that's why a lot of people do things that a lot of us can't explain how they did it. They just followed the formula and believed in the process and just be consistent, and eventually they got it done. So you have to be able to adapt. And this has to do with habits and being open to changes and so on and so forth. Now, as human beings, naturally we're resistant to change. Okay?
Right.
It's just the way we're made. That's the way we're wired. We don't like change. If today I changed your keypad, instead of changing from QWERTY, the setting QWERTY, QWERTY, and put it into a different format, and asked you to start sending people messages, you will get frustrated within the next 2-3 minutes. Either you end up sending a voice note, or you'd change back the keyboard setting, even though everything is there. Why? Because you're used to it.
It's because we don't like getting out of our comfort zone. Basically, when it comes to the keyboard, it needs more effort.
Yep.
Now I need to figure out till it becomes muscle memory. It'll take a while. Let me just put it back to the way it was.
So you need to be patient. You need to give yourself some time to learn. Now, obviously, the argument is not going to be about the keyboard, obviously, but human beings have a tendency to resist change. There's so many books, scientific books, and scholars and all that have talked about change. But one thing is that if you decide that you want to be somebody who you're not today, and that was your goal, that I'm going to be somebody different, I want to see what type of version of me is going to come out of this process, and that's your goal, then you have to give in to change. You have to give in to adaptability. You have to change and get rid of all the noise and the distractions and just focus on getting you to change.
How do you do that?
You're.
I'm sure a lot of people want to do that.
So one way of doing it is, for example, I believe in visualization. So the first thing I did when I decided that I wanted to do an Ironman, first of all, my first reaction when I saw the video, and I was like thinking, like I don't like running. And when I saw these guys are doing 21 kilometer runs after doing the swim and the bike, after 4, 5, 6 hours, that blew my mind away. So I was like, okay, fine, that's the goal that I want to achieve. if they can do it, I can do it. So the first thing I did was I printed the Ironman logo on an A3 paper, and I pasted it on the wall facing me in my bed. I have a section of the wall that I could,
did that.
yes, and until today I have things which I want to achieve in life, and I have pasted in my wall. So that was, and it was a big logo, and you know, it's an M with a red head,
Yes.
and all. That's the Ironman logo. And my wife asked me, "What is that?" I said, "That's the Ironman logo." So why are you putting it there? And I was like, I wake up every day in the morning, or when I go to bed, I want to see this, and so I don't forget, and I visualize that I'm finishing that cross line.
If you don't mind,
Sure.
can I pose you? You've always been into visualization?
No.
Do you remember when did you start and felt like, oh, this works? Because a lot of people look at visualizations like, you're just dreaming. Where do people get it wrong, and how do people get it? Can they do it the right way?
See, to be honest.
So now going back to this, so 2 questions. One, when did it start, and then how did you apply visualizations to Ironman?
So before going through this journey, I didn't know what visualization was. So
Before Ironman?
I wasn't really into, I never practiced and never even understood it. But when I saw the logo, and I thought that was a very cool logo to have like in your car or carrying your bag and all that. It's something that you can't buy if you are an Ironman, right? So I said, I was trying to find any of the, so I started looking at car stickers and keychains and all that.
Someone to do your push-ups.
Yeah, you can't do that. So the first thing I said, okay, I need to be able to visualize this and see myself finishing it. So when I printed that and I kept it, initially it wasn't on the wall. It wasn't on the wall. It was on my desk. And then a few days later, I said, let me just paste it on the wall. I want to see it every day in the morning. And then after pasting that on the wall, I think a week or 10 days later, I went and I downloaded their calendar to see where are the races, next races and all that. Factoring in Oman was coming up the following year. So I had the Ironman logo, and then I had the calendar. I said, okay, fine. So let me X now which one I want to do. And eventually it was just the Oman one, which was up next, because I wasn't ready. And that's how it started. So when I started seeing that every day, it was very difficult for me to forget. And when I started training and doing all these things, so at first few months it was difficult. I wasn't consistent. But then eventually I was like, if I have to put in the hours, I have to put in the kilometers, so on and so forth.
Where were the challenges when you weren't consistent?
Motivation, soreness, fatigue, partial injuries, and then just reading so many things online and mixing them up. Like finding content from this guy and finding content from that guy. And then another challenge that I had, and I had it for a long time, was nutrition. It was just a disaster. And everybody had their own philosophy about nutrition and fuel planning, fuel management.
Which I wanted to ask you, regarding nutrition. Like, what are the discoveries that you came across with yourself in terms of perception before Ironman and after Ironman? There's a lot of education involved in the process.
That's true. So before Ironman, I didn't really know much other than just eating healthy, salads and so on and so forth. But then when you transition and get into becoming an athlete, and especially an endurance athlete, there's a lot to understanding how your body functions and the fuel that you use, right? During my time till today, I've had the opportunity to work with different coaches. But the only downside of that is that they had different protocols on fuel management, nutrition, and that was based mainly and purely from experience. So during COVID, when we mainly were working from home, all that, and I'll tell you a very interesting story about COVID once I'm done with this. I took up a course on nutrition, just to educate myself, and that helped me a lot with understanding, especially sports nutrition, understanding what and how and when and all these other things. So alhamdulillah, now my knowledge in terms of sports nutrition, I think I'm pretty okay with it, and I adjusted according to events that I'm in or whatever mainly I'm getting involved in, whether it's a race or preparation or pre-race and so on and so forth. And alhamdulillah, I was able to help a lot of even friends to with certain, I don't want to call it diet, it's just more of a lifestyle adjustment, because I don't believe in restricting and not restricting and doing this and it becomes difficult to sustain it. So just to understand, and everybody's different, they're not the same, But if you understand the principles, then it works. But for performance sports, like I said again, there are formulas that you follow and they work. But the aha moment, again, like I mentioned earlier, is when I realized that we have a lot of fuel, which is our fat, the body fat that we have in our system. And the body can tap into it and use it. And it's very efficient. And that's how, for example, ultra athletes, like people who do 120 kilometers marathon or run, trail runs that go up to 3-4 days, and you don't see them carrying much food. It's because they're not carb dependent, they're more fat dependent, which they already have in their body. So once you understand all these things, then it helps a lot with your preparation, with how you're going to be performing and all that. And if you look at the pros, the professionals, especially the triathlon professionals, they're all very fit, like they're unbelievably fit human beings. But the only difference between pro triathlete A versus B on that specific race comes down to their fuel management and their recovery and rest, other factors that are not related to how much they've trained. They've trained enough, they're fast enough, and so on and so forth.
Most people know, let's say, sugar is bad.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of carb is also bad. But why they're not able to apply what they know?
It's difficult. Sugar and carb is difficult. It's addictive. You know.
So
Today,
how
if you
did
look
you
at, I'll tell
manage?
you.
Were you
So-
always not having carb?
No, I do have carbs. I have if I want to put it in simple terms, I have a very balanced diet. But I know what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat for the purpose of whatever I want. For example, if I'm going to be racing, okay, my race is coming up in the next 2 months, I will shed a lot of weight off because of the intensity of the training and all that, and I'll focus a lot on maybe proteins and focus on getting my body used to working with fat rather than with carbs. And getting lighter as well helps a lot. If I'm off season, then I know I'm more relaxed and all that and this, but I don't go past certain weight. For example, my weight in the last 3-4 years has always been below 67. The lowest that I've been was 61, the highest that I've been is 67. Before that, I was averaging 72, 73, 74, so on and so forth.
I mean, I've worked out with you a couple of times, and after a workout, you just want to...
Eat.
Yeah. You don't want to,
Yes.
But you don't.
Yeah, because you're carb dependent. You're more carb dependent than I am.
But were you always like that?
No, you have to transition to it. So a good example to this is when you're fasting in Ramadan. If you notice the first week, you're very tired, you're weak, you don't feel like doing anything, your body is just shutting down slowly. Following the second week and the third week, because you're not consuming enough food, you don't have enough calories, you're fasting most of the day, 16 to 18 hours.
No, my question is mentally. When you finish a workout and you want to just have some nice club sandwich or...
I could, but I don't crave it.
So you actually don't crave it?
No, I don't crave it.
You don't feel like having a smoothie maybe after
it's not something
crazy workout?
I'd like to have a cold, water or something, but it's not like I'm craving something sugary or sweet. Like the best case scenario for me, if I go back home, I would have maybe a few pieces of watermelon, for example. That for me is more rejuvenating and nourishing. It's alive, you eat seeds, you eat the watermelon, it has water and everything.
Were you like this before Ironman?
La, not really. I wasn't this disciplined when it came to food.
Yeah, so how did that process happen?
As a result of attaining knowledge pertaining to nutrition. I realized, okay, I'm equipped with all these training programs and understand what needs to be done, all that, but I lack the nutrition side aspect of it. So when I started learning and educating myself, building awareness, then I understood that it goes hand in hand. But again, you have to be very disciplined.
And I think you're driven by performance.
Yes, because you start counting, especially now you're wired and you have watches and data and all that. And if you did a run in 1.5 hours, you want to do it in 1 hour and 25 minutes. Then next time you want to do it in 1 hour and 20 minutes and so on. So you push yourself in training and all that, but and then you say, okay, let me try adjusting my nutrition. Let me do this. Let me drop 0.5 kg from my weight and see maybe I'll go faster, or 1 kg from my weight, and so on and so forth. So all these things come into play. And it's just you competing with yourself, by the way. You're not competing with anybody. You're just competing with yourself. This is the beauty of this sport, is that you're challenging yourself, excluding the pros, you as an individual amateur, Every race is a competition with yourself.
Why are you saying that? I mean, I know definitely in endurance training, pacing and patience is key.
Mm.
But why you're saying that you're just racing, you're in your own race? Why?
Because you want to beat yourself better. You want to beat the last time you did a race. You want to beat yourself from that race.
And what happens when you try and beat others?
It's not an apple to apple comparison. Like, on what basis would you be competing with somebody who's been training for the last 10 years? You met him today on the race and all that, and he's next to you, happened to be next to you, and you're trying to catch up. If you try to do that, a lot of people do that mistake. As soon as you get into the water, which is the beginning of the race, and you're trying to outswim the people next to you, you don't know, maybe the person next to you is a semi-pro. So what happens is that you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. So rather than focusing on beating others and competing with others, which is irrelevant, you don't get an award when you beat the person or not. Like I said, if you're only a pro, because the pros compete for the first, second, and third place, and they start alone first. And there's prize money and sponsorships and so on and so forth. So for them, that's their livelihood. That's a different ballgame. But for you as an individual who's an amateur, you're not really competing with anybody except yourself. And you're going to be benchmarking on what you've done in the past. And even if you've never done it before, this is your first time, you're going to try to beat yourself to do it right the first time. The second time happens, you try to do better than the first time, so on. So if you have that mindset of trying to beat yourself and challenging yourself, you're going to be doing this for a long time. But if you're just doing it just to compete with people and to show people and all that, then it's just going to be a short-term thing.
You're gonna burn out.
Very
you're gonna get injured.
And
But it's something that I struggle with. But I'm learning a lot because you become driven by performance. But it's a thin line between over-pacing yourself and pushing yourself. How do you differentiate that?
as long as you don't hurt yourself in the process.
Your body complains.
You should continue to push yourself.
Your body will complain probably before you even start.
Yeah, but see, that complaining that you're talking about, that's just your body trying to save itself from being pushed. And that's triggered by your mind. In reality, when you're doing any activity for a long time and you feel like you're almost run out of energy and so on, you've just done maybe 50% of, you consumed 50% of your resources. You have another good 50% to go ahead with. But it's just your mind telling you to shut up because it's going on reserve.
So what do you tell yourself whenever your mind says like, all right?
This is where your negotiation skills come to play. How good of a negotiator are you in your mind? Because
what are the thoughts that come in your head?
So I'll tell you exactly what happened to me. My first Ironman race, on my run on the 11th kilometer, I could literally hear myself saying, first of all, I can hear myself telling myself, well done, you're amazing, you've done amazing for the first time, relax. You can stop, it's okay. Even if you don't finish, even if you quit, it's okay. You've done amazing for the first time. And that was constantly going through my mind.
Why?
My body was shutting down. My body was experiencing something it never experienced before. And my mind was experiencing something. Being under the sun, running and doing it for 5.5, 6 hours. I've never put myself in that situation before. Now, interestingly enough, on that specific day, which was the first Ironman in Muscat, the guy who kept on motivating me and tapping on my shoulder, the first time when he started seeing me walking, that's when you realize people are giving up. He tapped on my shoulder, and I think the reason why he tapped on my shoulder because we were wearing the same tri-suit, just coincidentally. This guy was he was a 78-year-old Greek man. 78
in the race.
In the race, okay. He beat me by 28 minutes. So he finished the race at 6 hours exactly. I finished 6 hours, 28 minutes. But because of him, first of all, obviously, when he tapped my shoulder, when I looked at him, he looked old. He's 70. I mean, he looked his age in a way, right? But his physique and his body was amazing. And he was shorter than me. And he was telling me, he was tapping my shoulder, said, "Don't quit, young man. And he had an accent. He was Greek. I didn't see him. I didn't see anybody, at that age, that race. I never expected to see somebody at that age. And the first reaction that I had was like, in my head, was like, "Aib, Aziz. Wallah, aib alik." Aib, هذا جدك. It's your grandfather. Literally, And I felt so embarrassed, and I was like, what's going on? Why am I talking to myself? Why did I stop? Why am I walking and all that? And then I started pushing along, and he was slow. It wasn't he was fast, he was slow, and not much difference. But obviously, 8-9 kilometers to go, he obviously continued, didn't stop. And when I finished the race, I remember, because my body was in complete, my body was in, there was a lot of pain. As soon as I crossed that line, I just collapsed. I didn't faint. I just fell down and I stopped. I didn't want to walk. I didn't want to do anything. They just, as soon as they gave me, there's a video of this. They put the medal around my neck, and my family and my kids, everybody was screaming and shouting, and I can see them. And I just fell down. I wanted to sleep. And then the volunteers came, and they had a bottle of water, and they thought I was fainting or something. And I was like, no, I just leave me alone. I want to understand what happened. Anyway, that night, I stayed at the same hotel that was there, and I bumped into this Greek guy. And I went to him, and I hugged him, and I thanked him, and I took a selfie with him, and he was just an inspiration to me. And ever since then, and he told me his story, and he's been doing this for more than 20 years.
What's his story?
His story is that he's a cancer survivor.
Mashallah.
And after he survived cancer, he felt like God was giving him a second chance. So when he got the second chance, he really took care of himself. He started doing sports. He started with marathons, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers. And eventually
Did he mention how old he was when he survived cancer?
No, he said he just had it in the past. And then that's when his child, I don't know, maybe he could have been in his 40s, 30s, 50s. I didn't ask him about the details of this, but he said that's when his life changed. So he was a very big inspiration for me, especially my first time and all that. And I realized, like, wow, this guy's been doing it for 20 years. He's 78. I would like to be as fit and healthy as he is. He just, he had a second chance of life. That's why he did it. Why should I wait? God forbid. Why should we wait to go through that, misery or getting a possibility of a second chance? No, enjoy. And he said something which is interesting. He said, I enjoy life more now than I used to before. And I asked him, so what do you mean? He said, I completely forget sometimes my age. Because biologically, on calendar, I'm 78, but biologically, I don't feel 78 anymore. And I don't feel like I'm restricted because of my age and all that. I do Ironmans, I travel, I came to Oman my first time, I meet beautiful people, amazing people first time.
Oh, he's not even based here?
No, he just came here to do the race, and that's what he does now. Obviously, he's retired for a long time. That's what he does. He travels to different parts of the world as part of his holiday, and he does the Ironman races. And he says, I still, sometimes I forget I have my old shoes, and I don't get new shoes, and I have my bike, which I had it for the last 8-9 years. And so he says he's not bothered anymore. He just feels good doing it. So that inspired me a lot. I said, okay, fine. I would love to be at his, in his age, feeling the way he feels and traveling and being fit and all that. And he really helped me a lot, not only during the race, but after meeting him, the words that that's his story that he shared with me really inspired me. And that's what I keep reminding myself. I need to continue, and how can I keep continuing being able to do this? This is a huge opportunity. And we're not taking advantage of it, unfortunately. The lifestyle that we live in today, it's not conducive to our health and doesn't help with us getting better. On the contrary, we see people falling sick and getting illnesses because of poor nutrition, not moving enough, and so on and so forth at a young age. Obviously, life is not guaranteed, but you make the best of it. Human body is a beautiful and amazing machine. It is probably it's a miracle, right? How much are we making use of it?
I'm sure someone, if they would see him on TV, they'll say, oh, this guy has got the special genetics.
I would beg to differ. Genetics, I believe in them, true, but with this type of endurance sport, it really has to do with being disciplined and consistent and being patient.
Do you get it sometimes? People would say, oh, but you're...
Yeah, because of my parents and all that, they feel like, okay, all of us were fit and all that. No, that's not true. My brother until today suffers from, trying to do things that I try to do and all that. But it just comes down to, yeah, alhamdulillah, I can't complain in terms of genetics. It does help a little bit, but if you're doing any endurance sport, you have to apply, like I said, again, coming back to the formula. You have to apply the formula and believe in the process. Plain and simple. Don't overthink it. As soon as you overthink it and try to find shortcuts and trying to find smart ways of doing it, no. If you have to climb the mountain, you have to climb the mountain.
I say the talent is being able to wake up, let's say, at 4 a.m.
Probably.
all the time. That's where the talent
Probably.
is.
Yeah.
Because no one likes waking up are getting out of bed when they didn't finish, and they could sleep more. That's the talent that you need for
Probably.
Ironman preparation. Any other talent, if that's not there, the discipline is not there,
Yeah, becomes difficult.
talent will just give you maybe 5K. What are you going to do? And what I love about Ironman is that this is what I noticed. Those who love swimming hate running.
Mm.
And those who love running hate swimming.
Mm.
But Ironman, it makes you like it's equal. Everybody has to suffer. Like there's no escaping it.
So-
One of these three areas
Yeah.
will be your weakness. And now what are you going to do about it?
So there's a saying says, why, when people ask you, why are you doing, it's a joke. Why do you pick triathlon and Ironman? It says, because I'm bad at all sports, so I might as well be bad at all three and do it together. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not always equal. So you invest more in the sports that you're weak in, or the discipline that you're weak in, you invest more time in there.
Do you feel after Ironman it affected other areas of your life? You
Positively.
going through, yeah.
Of course.
How?
I became super disciplined. Super disciplined. I have to see, like I said, part of doing this is you have to be disciplined, committed, focused, and all that. But also it involves a lot of planning. That skill, and anybody who does triathlons or Ironman races for a long time, they're very good planners to a certain extent. So it helped a lot also. So you incorporate a lot of these skills and aspects of your preparation in your personal life. It helps a lot.
How
makes it
much of it you feel is mental?
This torture, I think 70% of it is mental. Yeah, 30% is probably just...
The planning and all that,
yeah.
but yeah.
Because some people see it as torture, but it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you choose,
It's
you
70%.
gotta choose your pain.
70%, yeah. 70, I think 70%, 60 to 70% of it is mainly mental. Because if you have a weak mind, you easily give in, then you won't be able to do this for long. Sure. You have to be very strong-minded.
Which I wanted to ask, self-belief, how much does it play?
It also has a reasonably small percentage in it, I feel, because, like I said, if you believe in the process and you know the formula, all you have to do is just follow it.
What about believing in yourself?
Yeah, part of it, because if you're committed to doing this and focused and so on and so forth and all that, part of it is for you to believe that you can do it, right? So there are elements of you to believing that you can do it. I've never heard of anybody giving up because they believed they couldn't do it. The only reason why I felt people probably just give up in doing this, some of the people that I know that give up doing it, is because they stop believing in the process, not believing in themselves. Yeah. So it eventually gets you into this momentum and rhythm that you have to just follow and do and follow and do. But
I mean, they could believe in the process and then they could believe that process is not for them.
Well, if it's not for them, it's not for them. But it has nothing to do, I don't think it has a lot to do with believing in yourself, because, like I said, it's just, if that you're referring to something where from the first day you decide that you want to do this, you have some certain level of belief that you can do it, right? That's more than enough. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to wake up, sleep, eat, breathe, everything. You can do it. No, it's by default, it's there in your mind. As soon as you decided you want to do this, you want to go through this journey, it's there. Now, the only aspect is that you have to also believe in the process. Like I said, you can believe yourself 100%, but if you don't believe in the process and you don't follow it, then good luck trying to do something like this, because you might end up, not being able to do it.
I mean, I do, since I'm still in the process, I do face that challenge. And that's what I keep actually reminding myself, is just stick with the process. Because sometimes you can train, and obviously you would, as long as you're putting your body through stress, then there is some growth happening.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't see it. You don't see any of it. All you see is just pure pain with no improvement, especially, let's say, with me in swimming. So, but I keep reminding myself of these things, that at least my stamina is going up. But I think also a very big part of it, as you said, I have this belief in myself that I can do it. I believe that I'm meant to do it. And maybe...
It's good.
Yeah, but I feel there's a lot of people don't have that, right? And maybe because I've been into sports since I was young and I like it, and because I excelled in sports when I was younger, it became part of my identity, right? But having that identity really has nothing to do with, I still have to do the swim, I still have to do the bike, I still have to do the run, and I'll still feel the pain. But the only difference is a lot of people quit before even, giving themselves a chance, where I believe the self-belief and identity plays a huge role. If you believe that, no, this is not for me, this is doing, and because Ironman 70.3 is basically 2 Olympic triathlons and a little bit more, right? So a normal person would be like, yeah, not for me. I've never excelled in these things. No, it's not for me, which is not true. But it's their self-belief which gets in their way. So how would you feel a person should build that self-belief to be able to achieve?
So one way is, I did mention earlier that the support system, the community, that is probably the strongest motivator for anybody to believe that they can do it. And as soon as you're in this sport and you meet other triathletes and people who've done this for years and so on and so forth, and the way they support you and they believe in you, like I believe in you and you should be able to do it. I believe in our friends who have never done it before, like Saad, for example, and all that. Because I know you can do it. I know they can do it, right? And hearing this from different people, it will definitely change that and spark that belief. And once that happens, just once, khalas, it's just a matter of you following that process and believing in the process, and everything will fall into place. And it's just a matter of time. So first step is trying, getting involved, communicating or interacting with the community, the support system. That's going to go a long way. So I think that's the first step that should be done. Expose yourself to other people who believe in you, who believe that you can do it.
And I think also, of course, reading success stories, knowing that there are other humans who are maybe in worse condition,
yes,
and manage to do it, that should kill your whatever logical reason you think you have.
Yeah.
And also just sticking with the process. Like Guardiola, I remember he used to tell, or it's either his players in Man City, used to say that Guardiola would say, don't focus on winning, focus on playing well. The results will take care of itself.
True. Yeah.
Which, because Ironman is not a 1 month training and, I'm ready, it requires a lot. And because it's a gigantic goal, you will not see the deadline. You won't see the end line when you start. Or not even after, you started making progress, you still will not see the end line close, right? It'll stay far. And you learn to just keep your head down and just keep pushing and keep, stroking and keep chopping the tree, and just sticking to the process and not being very obsessed with the results. I think this is something that definitely taught me, is just stick with the process. And adaptability is like when what did you think when I first did the aquathlon and I told you straight I'm going to do the long one, and you knew that I was bad at swimming?
Yeah. No, but because also I mean, I know you've been fit for a long time and all that. I knew you could do it. It's not a matter of doing it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, he might push himself too hard, might end up hurting himself. Because I don't know how are you the next day, but obviously you'd feel the pinch. But somebody like who's never done anything before, you're an exception, right? You've been working out for a while and all that, and you've been fit, and you're still fit, mashallah.
So endurance training has to do with your cardio.
So,
right? Nothing to do with your power.
Yes.
It's not like 6 reps, 8 reps, and we're done. No, you didn't even start. So from outside, I look very fit. But when I started running, I could only run 3K. But I think a very big part is the identity part. So at least I'm not the one who's getting in my own way. And I think you notice it whenever you throw a big challenge in front of
you
me.
go ahead. Yeah.
You see me.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Which is a thin line.
Yeah.
And I know, and everybody I've been training with, because I even trained my first days. I trained with Hisham Barwani, and he's a runner. He only runs. I did my first 5K, and I was very happy. That was my PR, and I think I didn't even get to do it twice. I bumped into him after so many years, and I told him, I'm getting into endurance training. He's like, okay, how about, we need to catch up, and instead of catching up over coffee, let's catch up over run, and we'll run like an easy 6K, and we'll talk and catch up. I was like, for me, that 5K was a PR, and I used everything. And you want to do more than that while talking.
Yeah.
But a part of me is, I just never I know, of course, there's a thin line where arrogance or confidence. So we did the 6K, and then I think we did it after 3 days, we did another. Actually, when we did the 6K, he was like, how about we do one more K? I was like, I'm exhausted, I'm done. I was like, yeah, why don't we just add another 1K? So we did another 1.5, so we did 7.5. And then the week after, he told me, all right, in 2 weeks, there's a 10K marathon. Are you up for doing it? I read the message, but I couldn't respond immediately. I'm like, 10K. My PR was 5K, and now I did the 6K. Like, I don't know how I did it, and now I'm supposed to be double that. I was like, hey, if I could do the 5K, and then I could do the 7.5, then I could do this 10. So I told him, yes, done. We're gonna do it. Of course, he doesn't know how I feel through the message, but the week after we did 10K, going PDO, but after you pass Ras Al Hamra, you go uphill. And I had done just cycling, 2 days before that. So my quads were already done. Lactic acid was like a whole symphony going on in my quads. And so we did, 10K going up. And then a week after that, we did the marathon. I think a lot of that has to do with that self-belief part. A lot of that has to do with self-belief part. Of course, how much you can tolerate pain, that's a whole different... I think that's where the identity comes. Because when I was in school, I didn't believe... I saw that I wasn't good in studies, so I might as well be good in sports. And that's where my passion was. So I think I still carry definitely that identity. But I noticed with some people around me, there are a lot of people who are ill. All right, Alex Roca. This guy has cerebral palsy, 76% disability on one side, and he finished a marathon, which is 42K. What do people have as an excuse? If somebody with 76% could finish a marathon, and he has straps all over. If you know anything about endurance training, if you have any imbalance, right?
Yeah,
you're gonna feel the pain. And then the longer you go, the bigger the pain gets, So imagine with him having so many imbalances, I can't imagine what type of pain he goes through. I think that's the biggest disability that most people have, and we all face, is the mental disability. It's not the physical. Because I say if a person can do, let's say gifted, can do an ultra marathon. All right, you as a normal person, how much percent can you do from that? 30%? All right, then you should be able to do 30K. No, you can't. All right, 15%. Do
Yeah.
15K. But that's not the case. And most of the time it's we get in our own way. We get in our own way.
We are our biggest enemy. We are our biggest enemy.
All right, I wanna now get away from Ironman. Let's talk about a little bit maybe before Ironman. I knew you since we were kids,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You always had friends older than you. Why?
As a teenager, I think I was too mature for my age. And the fact that if you're associated with anybody younger, people look down on you in a way. So I just clicked with kids who were older than I was.
You feel like you couldn't fit in with people your age.
Yeah, I never fit in with younger, and I always wanted to do what the older kids did, even in school and all that. Ever since I was a kid, even when I played football, I didn't want to play football with my group of, my age group. I wanted to go and play with I think that's one of the reasons also. But also, I'll tell you one thing that made me this is because when we were young, I think at the age of 3, our father put us in karate, and we did that for 10 years, myself and my brother. And at the age of 13, I was already a second dan black belt, and I was coaching and training people, older than I was. So I had that ability and comfort to, mingle and communicate and, connect with people who were also older than I was. So even back in school, I was comfortable, connecting with people who were older than I was. And my friends were all. And I think maturity plays it, because they wouldn't have hung around with me if I was not matured enough.
You feel that played a role in building your character?
Of course, 100%.
Because a lot of people do karate, but they don't do it until they get their black belt, which that's at least the minimum of completing the process. How do you feel that worked in terms of building your character?
Confidence, ability to express easily, and not having just general fear of things. That's why I was probably categorized as a rebel growing up as a kid. I had not much fear on trying and doing things and all that. I was confident enough that I can take care of myself physically, and I was also, to a certain extent, forced into being disciplined as well because of the martial arts. But then, of course, that changed when I got out of it when I was a teenager and all that. But it had a lot to do with building my character, for sure.
And then after that, at an early age, you went to study in Malaysia, right?
Yeah, I worked a little bit first after school. I wasn't that great in school, so I decided to go to work. I worked for a while, a little bit, saved up a little money, and then went to Malaysia with my cousins, older cousins. It took me, then I realized, like, okay, that was my first time traveling, being alone, and being in a place like that. So it's where I think my mind, my perception about life and a lot of things changed.
After you got to Malaysia.
Yeah, because a lot of things that parents would be scared and fearful for their kids, especially boys, to get to be exposed and do things abroad, I ended up stopping or not getting into them as well.
Why do you think that happened?
I don't know. It's just because I was independent, I was alone, and for the first time, maybe I was scared to fail. I didn't want to fail. Okay, like I said earlier, the general feeling was no fear to fail, right? But that time I was generally scared to fail because I seen a lot of kids coming in, not doing well, going back, playing, not taking this education seriously. That's when I realized that, okay, fine, I have to put in the hard work so that I can reap the benefits. And that's the first time probably I discovered that there is a formula to everything in life. This is what I talk about again, reminding myself and reminding you as well. This formula, you know the formula, you follow the process, you're good.
How did you get to see that there's a formula to follow?
Previously, as a young person, as a teenager, I thought, again, I depended on talent and being smart and all that. No. At that time, I felt that was the right thing to do, and you get away with things. But there are certain things you can't get away from. So there are certain building blocks that you have to put in place. So if you're going to be going to study abroad and do a degree or whatever it is and all that, it's very simple. You study, you learn, you educate yourself. You pass, you achieve, you get your certificate, and you move on. trying to find shortcuts and being smart or being talented and all that didn't cut it anymore. You know, and there was no safety net in a way. The way I looked at it, there was no safety net from that problem. So, and I was probably one of the few people who felt that way. Otherwise, other friends and people that were surrounding me didn't feel that way. So they had fun. They were more, you know, relaxed and all that. I was very disciplined in a way. Like in less than a year, I just became very disciplined and just focused on doing my studies and finishing and all that. Then, when I got an opportunity to travel in different places for work and all that, I took it. I didn't actually come back to work in Oman.
Why?
So I went to different countries and then ended up back in the Middle East. Went to Doha, Qatar, and then I went to Bahrain, and then I went to UAE. Stayed there for a while, and then I came back to Oman.
What did you work?
It started from Malaysia, actually. Malaysia, as a student, I started working for an IT company. And then between that and IT company, I used to go back and forth to Singapore once or twice every month. And I realized, like, okay, fine, I can stay here and I can work. But reality is, no, you can't as a student. So when I finished, I decided I wanted to study cooking, culinary arts, and I wanted to stay in Malaysia. So and then I went and I took a diploma in cooking, culinary arts, and I worked for a hotel that had the school also.
Okay.
So, and that gave me a good exposure and stayed in the country a bit longer. And then I moved to Middle East, went to Doha, worked for a bank for a short period of time, and then joined Gulf Air. Worked in Bahrain for a while as a flight attendant, which was probably, the flight attendant experience was probably the most exciting employment I had, both at Gulf Air, and then I moved to Etihad, Abu Dhabi for a short period of time, and then I got into banking, which is where I am in right now, since 2000.
Why are you saying it was most exciting?
It was not planned, unexpected. It was just an opportunity that arose, and I said, okay, fine, let me take it. And the idea of traveling every other week, different countries, and the interesting part is that it taught me a lot to deal with people, because every flight you travel with a new set of crew, new set of flight attendants, new manager, captain, first officer. Every flight is a different set of crew. So that taught me a lot on how to deal with different characters, personalities. Even though I've lived abroad and worked abroad and all that, still that was probably the most valuable lesson I've learned. And it humbles you.
In which sense?
Because it's not a fancy job. It seems like a fancy job where you see people dressed in suits and, you know, suitcase and all that. But, you know, for the first 2 months or 3 months, you're just cleaning up toilets in the airplane.
And how did you deal with it?
Well, I worked in the kitchen before, so I was okay with it. But it humbles you in the sense that you realize that even though you get paid well, sometimes you still have to do the dirty job. And there's no point of being arrogant or showing off. At the end of the day, I looked at it, it humbled me a lot. It gave me a bit of perspective into what I have. So I never, alhamdulillah, I don't want to say in any way, I was never a person who liked to flash or show or talk about something I have. Okay. But that solidified, that experience solidified that thought. So number one. Number two, I met amazing people who worked as flight. I met doctors, people who actually studied medicine and became doctors, but unfortunately because they're in parts of the world where they don't really pay much. Okay? And some of them didn't just do it for the money, they just did it to travel the world, which is the cheapest way to travel the world. You know, these people who educate and all this. So that perception about flight attendants have completely changed. I stopped looking at them as I stopped looking at them in any way, lower income individuals or, you know, lower part of society. No. They're actually very well educated, I was also educated, but I just happened to find that opportunity and I got into it. And I enjoyed the aspect of traveling and meeting new people and so on and so forth. And every month or two, you get a 3-day, 4-day staycation in some country or layover. So and you paid for it. But then eventually when I moved to Etihad, Abu Dhabi, I realized I don't want to do that anymore because I wanted to settle down, get a wife, you know, and all that. So I said, okay, fine, now let me start looking for a real, it's not that it wasn't a real job, but I wanted a stable job, ground job. And then I got into Islamic banking, which was a newly established Islamic bank in Dubai. And then my career in banking continued all the way until coming back to Oman.
But I remember when I first met you in Dubai, you were based in Ajman.
Yes, because I took a lower paying, I moved from Etihad and I lost almost 50% of what I was earning in that bank job. So I had to be able to afford where I live. So I moved to Ajman because it was cheaper.
The first thing that came in my head was like, oh, this guy's making a sacrifice.
Yes, huge sacrifice.
One, the drive, right? And two, not staying in the flashy Dubai. I didn't dig deeper into that, but it is definitely, I took a mental note. And I was like, I didn't see this side of Aziz before, and willing to make, most people wouldn't make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right? They'll just stay in Dubai, pay a higher rent, right? Maybe buy a new car, right?
Do you remember what car I had when I was
Lexus GS.
No. I had a...
You had it at one point, right?
No, that was my neighbor.
Okay.
Maybe you saw me with the car because it was my neighbor's car. But at that point when you saw me, I took a big sacrifice and all that. And I was driving for a good 2.5 years. I was driving a 1999 Toyota Corolla. Even when I went to propose to my wife, I went with that car. Her father, I think, had doubts. He's like, is this guy really made it in Dubai or here? But I had plans. Like I already had plans. I sacrificed and I had a plan and I said, you know what? I'm going to make it in this industry and I'm going to focus and so on and so forth. It was a good investment. Think of it that way. I think of it as an investment.
A lot of people wouldn't be willing to do that. Why do you feel you managed?
I mean, I'm not tempted at all. I've never been tempted by flashy things, obviously. Even back when I was in Malaysia and all that. Ever since I was a student, I wasn't drawn to it. Even Dubai, when I was living in Dubai, I moved to Dubai and alhamdulillah, I was happy. When I grew in my career and all that and built, have a family and stuff. I was never distracted by the flash that of Dubai. It could be a blessing, I don't know. But that's probably one of the reasons why it helped me a lot with accepting it. I'm content. If you're content with what you have and what you do, I think you'll always be okay. I think for me, I'm always content, alhamdulillah. And I try to remind myself, I avoid looking anything or anybody above me. I always look at the ones which are my peers or the one below me, so to appreciate what I have and what I've done and so far. So I've always looked at it that way. So even when moving to Ajman, a lot of people even didn't know what Ajman was. At least for the foreigners that I met in Dubai. Where are you staying, Ajman? Oh, is that a building? I said, no, it's a different state. I lived in Emirates. So, but alhamdulillah, it worked out well.
I mean, when I saw that, the thought came in my head is that this guy has a plan.
Yeah, I didn't want to fail.
Like it doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
You get a job in Dubai, you stay in Dubai.
Yeah.
Rent is expensive. You pay that,
صح.
But making that sacrifice, you told me this guy has a plan.
Yeah. It worked out well, actually, because I ended up getting into as a side hustle while working the bank, because I wasn't making much. But during the 2006 and 7, the real estate boom, it was across the whole UAE. Obviously, it was mainly in Dubai, but being in Ajman, and Ajman also was trying to copy what Dubai was doing. So I managed to get into this real estate frenzy of buying, underdeveloped projects, which are on paper basically, buying them for 10% and then keeping them aside. And I was able to make, alhamdulillah, a decent amount of money in less than 2 years that resulted in affording to being able to buy a property in Ajman, for example. So it was a blessing, but I didn't end up staying in Ajman for a long time. It's just the fact that I was there and I was for the first year and a half. And when I got married, we were there as well. And then we moved to Dubai. So sometimes some things are blessings in disguise. But yeah, the plan was not to be drawn and dragged into the flash and the extravagant lifestyle in Dubai. So it's a trap. It can easily be a trap. I've seen so many people come in and leave and not make it just because of not being disciplined or not enough self-discipline. I mean, you've been there as well for a while.
Yeah, and you can easily get influenced. You know, it takes a lot of effort to. Anyone can have a plan, but sticking to the plan, that's where you see
Yep.
the discipline. And mashallah, you continued growing in the banking sector until now. Mashallah, you're in the C level,
Alhamdulillah,
coming all the way from
Ajman.
Ajwan. How much of that do you feel had to do with accountability?
I think more than accountability, I think it has to do with taking responsibility rather than being accountable. First, you take responsibility and then you hold yourself accountable to things. Another thing, I think it has to do with being stubborn with yourself sometimes by not allowing others to brand you less than who you are. Okay? Especially when you're talking about career and workplace and achieving and doing things and all that. So one part is a skill set, which is what you develop and you learn and you grow with and so on. So the other part is your belief system and your values and all that. Before building your skills and all that, you need to build the values and your integrity and what you value most and what would you believe in most. And for me, I always believe hard work pays off, both hands down. Nobody can convince me otherwise. You put the hard work in, it will pay off eventually. I've never seen anybody who missed out on opportunities because of hard work. On the contrary, they've gotten a lot of opportunities and growth because of hard work. And another philosophy I believe in is if you have to do the most difficult task, if you get an opportunity to do the most difficult task in the room, you be the one to take it. Because that's the only way, because people don't like to do difficult things. Which is coming down to also the question you first asked, why do the Ironman? Why not? It's not easy, right? It's difficult, but it has its reward. Same also with work. That mindset is the same. It's just the playing field is different. You know, here you're in professional executive lifestyle, and here you're doing it for sports, for the sake of sports, or for being healthy, or being fit, and so on and so forth. They're both difficult. So you pick on the most difficult things and you try to crack them and make them work. And that's one way I think to evolve as a person professionally. If you want to evolve and you want to grow, you always have to challenge yourself. Challenging yourself is not by staying longer hours in the office. That's not challenging yourself. That's not what challenging is. Challenging yourself is taking up new responsibilities, looking at new opportunities, creating your own opportunity as well. Sometimes if you just wait for an opportunity to be sent to you, you wait for a long time. So all these things come into play, and as a result, you build a following, people that either work with you, your colleagues, your friends, even if it's in your own business. You know? Everybody needs to believe in you and your belief system and your value, and then you bring in your skill sets and so on and so forth. So it's a mixture of various other things as well. But as long as you put the hard work in and you're consistent, you never go wrong. You will never go wrong. Nobody will go wrong at all.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast and the founder of, I think, Flaming Cheetos. And he said, people say it's about who you know. He said, well,
Somehow.
You can know the CEO, but it's about the CEO knowing you. He says, in his case, it's his work ethic that superseded him. I think a lot of times, I mean, whenever we spoke, I know very humbly you always give credit for your success to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I believe in the same. But I also believe that people are all given opportunities. It's just that we don't take them, or that we're not prepared for them, and we don't do the necessary work to prepare for them, to be prepared for them, for those opportunities. So even if you give someone an opportunity, but if they're not ready, then it's a wasted. And then the other person who's been preparing without having any guarantee gets it, and then we're gonna say, oh, maktub.
Yeah.
Right? But we never talk about maktub, and we only remember it whenever somebody finally gets it.
Mm.
But when he's, let's say, waking up every day, putting in the work, all of that part where we're forgetting that it's not an overnight. And you have to always not wait for guarantees. You told me a story of one of your colleagues that later joined your team, if you mind sharing.
Which will remind me of the story again.
I think his name is Hussein.
Ah, yes, he's the person with determination. Yes. This person is an amazing person, mashallah alayh. Hassan Haidar, yeah. And when I first met him, we were interviewing people internally in the bank. And he was, I think, the fourth person or fifth person. And as soon as he walked in and the way he smiled and his charisma and all that, this immediately in my head, I realized this is an amazing person. I want to know more about him. And the hiring manager who's working for me, or working with me, she was eventually the last final decision maker. Because today he would be reporting to her. He's gone through, at that point we didn't know much about his life, but we just treated him like he was a normal person. But he was just fantastic, had an amazing attitude, very positive, very jolly, very happy and all that. It's like, you know what? And I started putting him to the test, told him, listen, this is going to be a difficult job. You have to deal with difficult people. You have to do this, you have to do that. I said, it's okay, I can do this, I can do that. It's like, you know what? This guy is fantastic. And to be honest, he's been with us for a good 3 or 4 years, and he's changed all our lives, because the things that we saw him do and how he's become, and he became very open with his public speaking, and he's developed his skills and capabilities, sharing his story only, inspired a lot of people. A lot of people. Just getting on the stage and seeing him walk on the stage, that itself gives anybody goosebumps. And then when you see him speak and how he speaks, you would feel like you're disabled, knowing what he does and what he can do and all that. He was an amazing human being. And we've bounced ideas between each other so many times, apart from work. And he ended up being one of the motivational speaker aside. He got into the Oman national sailing team and traveled different parts of the world to compete professionally. And they've gotten a few rankings in certain races and all that. And because he was part of the national team, he had to take some time also off work and all that, but he was very committed. I think even he didn't know he can do that. So he became a huge inspiration to a lot of people. So then when I moved to organizations, we have something in our company called Let's Talk. It's a monthly thing that we do, and we bring in random people, inspirational people, to come and talk to our employees. So he was like the second or third person that we called in, and just sending the poster internally in our internal comms, letting people know that this person is going to come and speak. The room was almost filled. And we even had, because he was speaking Arabic, we even had expats who don't speak Arabic. They just wanted to be in the room and just hear this guy talk, even though they didn't understood a lot of the things that he said.
Wow.
That was how amazing it was. So, and until today, he does amazing stuff, and he speaks very well, and he has this way of communicating, and he has a sense of humor. But it's a very touching story, because even his parents and his family didn't believe he can come to be who he is today at that point. And any parent who has an unfortunate situation where the child is born in that way.
Physical challenges.
Yeah, physical challenges. So they tend to lose hope from the beginning. But I'm 100% sure, and I know this for a fact, like his parents and his father and all that, he is probably their pride and joy. So, mashallah alayhi. So he's inspired. Until today, he keeps inspiring us and all that. And I don't look at him at all as a physically challenged person. He's just an amazing person to be around with, and very inspiring, despite the challenges that he had. But he said, I don't see them. This is just in my mind. I just refuse to live by them. So, and he's done it. Who would ever thought somebody like him, once you see him, you'd understand, would be able to compete on a professional level in a sailing team? Because sometimes sailing races go on for 8 hours, 12 hours in the ocean. It's very physically into it. And this person has one arm.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. We're getting to the end of the episode. Lastly, I want to ask you, what do you feel if a person wants to become a high performer, what are the things they can do to enhance their mindset?
I think one very important thing is you surround yourself with other people who are high performers. If you want to become a computer geek, you surround yourself with computer geeks. If you want to become an online trader or sales, you surround with people behind a certain skill set and all that. So, but with high performance mindsets or just a certain type of mindset, you try your best to surround yourself with people who think like that, and eventually you would be like that. That's, I think, key number one. And once you get to that environment and surround yourself with the right environment, and then you start looking and building on your own values and own goals and building your own focus blocks and so on and so forth. And then, with things like visualizing and so on and so forth. And eventually you'll end up being, if not a high performer, at least you'd be in a better place comparing to where you were. And it's just a matter of trying to redo it and probably reinvent yourself every now and then. But I think key step number one is to surround yourself with like-minded people.
Aziz,
Sham,
it's been a pleasure.
always.
Thank you, brother.
See you tomorrow, inshallah.
Yeah.